fall for this life I was chosen. Mama told me don't get caught in the moment. Shawty know that she got what I want, and I'ma go. And these bars don't want it like I want it, I promise.
Alright, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Kid Clutch, and haven't made a video in a while, but I really had to talk about some animes this season because this anime season has been going crazy. We got so many heavy hitters, so many good and just like new and upcoming anime that I really want to talk about it. And the one that we're talking about today specifically is Classroom of the Elite. It's about to finish. I think we're on episode 11 right now. I just finished watching it not too long ago, and I don't think there's only going to be 12 episodes this season, so I want to talk about it right before the season ended because it still has some type, and I wanted to talk about this episode specifically because I made a video, or I kind of recorded a video on my thoughts on after I believe episode 8 because that was a crazy episode, but I didn't really get around to editing it and finishing it up, so I ended up watching episode 11, and I was like, I have to talk about this episode specifically because it had a guilty pleasure of mine, which is chess. I'm by no means like this chess expert or master, but I know a lot of chess, like a good amount. I'd probably say I'm better than average. I know a lot of aspects of it. I watch a lot of analysis videos, and I know a good amount of chess. So I feel like I, at the very least, am pretty much a little bit better equipped to talk about it than just a normal person who doesn't really play chess. But I'm not going to go into too much detail about the chess match. It was just that I really enjoyed the fact that they used chess because it's something I really do enjoy watching and learning about. But let's get into the chess match because that was the interesting part, for me at least. If you don't really care about chess, right, I'm not going to go into the whole match. I'm not going to go into everything. But what I do know from a person that knows a good amount of chess, like a decent amount of chess, right, and I've did a little bit of research on this, is that the chess match, if you're an avid chess fan, it actually is not that good of a match because it's clever in like a lower sense, but there is definitely some issues, and I'm going to show you guys right now. But for me, I think in terms of like more of a casual perspective of the match, it's actually very clever, and I like it because if you know a little bit or a decent amount of chess, I guess like for me, then it's like, oh, that was cool, right? But if you know a lot about chess, you're like, that was stupid, right? And if you know nothing about chess, you don't really understand anything. So I'm gonna try to explain it for you guys because I think it's gonna be interesting. So I have the board here, right? So what we're gonna do, right, is I'm gonna talk about first of all, this is how the match started, and I've seen that this right here is kind of weird because this becomes the position. Now, if you guys look at this position, nothing's really happened. No one's taken a piece yet. But this light square bishop right here, right? It was here, right? But the problem is the way this is worked right now, the way this is right now. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I think there's supposed to be a piece here. So the way this this is right now, the bishop can never get to this spot. So I've heard that it was more so of maybe an animation error because in here the way I've seen is like it actually can get to this position, but it needs to go from it needs to do it this order, in which we see from this position because this was the first few moves. That was impossible. So it might have just been an animation error, how they kind of set this up to this position, which I don't think that's a big deal because the actual point of the match isn't necessarily about exactly what happens or like how the match plays out. It's more so kind of the ending and how they're maneuvering. So we'll get into that position, but there's pretty much two incredibly key positions at the very end of the match that we need to talk about because if we look at this position right here, this is the overall position at the very end before like the crazy junction. Now, if you look at the evaluation bar here, if you guys don't know about chess, this means that white, which was what Ayano was playing, is ahead. Now, the reason Ayano was ahead is because he is up material. He is up a whole knight, right? We have 1, 2, 3, right? So they both have rooks. They both have 2 rooks. They both have a queen, and they both have 1 bishop. And then they have Gynecoji has 2 horses and for 1 bishop. And also Sakinagi, I believe, no, she's not down to pound. So this is the position. So in an actual aspect of chess in terms of like the highest in terms of if like you run it through a computer, this is a winning position for white. White cannot lose, like really shouldn't lose position if they play perfectly, right? However, the reason that they got to this position is because Sakayanagi, it was stated in the actual anime as well, where she's like, do you like my playstyle, Ayanokoji? And he's like, yes. If I had made a mistake, I'd be done for right now. And she's like, I know you wouldn't make a mistake, but this is still fun, or something like that, right? The reason for this is because at some point, I don't have the actual game log or whatever because they didn't show everything, but Sakayanagi essentially sacrificed one of her horses in order to get a better attacking position. And we also see Hashimoto talk about this, where he was like, oh, a pretty sick attack, right? Because this was a very strong attack. If you don't understand about chess, you're probably gonna see this and not understand it, but if we look at the position, they both have their kings safe, right? Their kings are safe, right? But if you look at Sakayanagi's position, she has her queen out, like attacking a lot of things. Her rooks are very active. Like she has rooks not on the rank, right? And her bishops are also very active and strong. So all of her pieces are in a very strong position. Whereas Ayanokoji has a queen that's fairly active. He's doing a lot of things. He has a good knight right here, and then this knight hasn't really done anything else because it just kind of moved, or it moved like from here. But it's also kind of just playing more defense. And then his bishop's pretty good right here, but it hasn't really done anything. But if you look at his rooks are just here. His rooks are like, they're not doing anything, right? So this was the position that Sakayanagi wanted, because technically, in terms of a literal, actual aspect of chess, like perfect aspect check, white is winning because this is just a winning position. But in terms of like people who aren't grandmasters and the highest of the highest, this is very difficult for white to hold, right? So enough with like the talking about the positional. The very, very, very key aspect of this was that, which is why a lot of chess fans, like big, like high-end like chess fans, didn't necessarily like it, because they thought it was interesting, but it wasn't like good enough, is because Ayanokoji at this point makes the move knight taking the bishop. It's knight takes e7, I believe. Now, did you see the bar drop? So if we go back one, white is winning significantly, but him taking this completely and utterly evens the game out, right? The reason for this is the fact that obviously they are kids, they are humans. So the reason this evens everything out is because if you play absolutely perfect in terms of the best like defense possible, white wins this. But if you mess up at any point, black is so far ahead, right? So the move here, because again, like we're talking about, Ayanokoji is already up a piece. He's already up 3 points of material. He's up a whole knight. This knight right here is not only attacking this bishop, it's also attacking the rook. So the move that actually needs to be played is knight takes rook, because now he is up so much more points of material. However, the reason he doesn't play this is because obviously he needs to relay the moves to Horikita. Horikita needs to play, and he also doesn't have an infinite amount of time to play, because while they're low on time at the very end, he's gonna run out of time to giving Horikita moves, and she's not gonna be able to understand it, because I think here, if you take with this, it's not that big of a deal. If you take it doesn't matter, right? So both of these kind of do the same thing. I think what I've seen people talk about is that you take with the bishop, and the reason here is white is still winning because he is up a full rook. Full rook. This rook right here, he's up this whole rook. However, if you look at the pieces, again, we still have 2 rooks that are not doing anything for Ayanokoji. His queen is here, right? But that's not that big of a deal because queen has to guard some stuff, and the knight's here, right? If you look at Sakayanagi's bishops at this point, they're very strong, and the rook is active. Like, it's a very, very strong position in terms of attacking. She's down material, but she is very strong. And realistically, with little time on the clock and not being a computer, it's very difficult to hold this position. Maybe Ayanokoji could if he was playing himself, but he's not, and there's a lot of different factors. So that's what happened. So that was the technical winning move, at least from this depth. Maybe like in terms of a higher depth or whatever, it's different, but this is like just like the kind of like the regular aspect of it, right? So in this position, Ayanokoji takes with the thing. Again, this evens out, right? The only move for black here is of course to take with the rook, because it's the only way. She does this. Now this is the key aspect as well, because Ayanokoji plays queen takes rook. Now look at the evaluation bar. The evaluation bar is dropping for white, dropping for Ayanokoji, because this move essentially loses the game. The reason it loses the game is because we have bishop takes knight here, and there's realistically nothing, because you have to stop, because right here the queen will, if you try to do nothing, like if you try to take the rook or anything, it's mate in one, right? It's mate. Okay, so we can't do that. You have to, the only defense here is either check or h here, or h3 or g3, I'm sorry, right? Only, and then here your position is just difficult because you have you can maybe do this. No, that doesn't work. What's the move here? H3 to try to force, and it's like you have the check, and then there's so much, like there's such a good attack here, and I don't think it's even for the computer, it's impossible to defend for white, right? So this was the aspects of the match where, in a technical sense, this was a blunder from Ayanokoji, right? However, they're low on time, so it's not a big deal. And also, the key aspect wasn't necessarily for this, because that wasn't what they were trying to go for. That wasn't like the highlight. If we look at the actual game, what happens, Sakinagi does not play this to win the game, right? To just give her the winning position. She does, and albeit that it does not work, but it's a beautiful queen sacrifice. It's fucking gorgeous, I'm telling you. We have queen takes knight. You saw this. Now look at the evaluation bar. It doesn't work, but it's fucking gorgeous because it's a great trick. And I think it would have been interesting is if right here, the time for both of them cut off, and they didn't. And then it was up to Horikita to make the move. Now, obviously, we understand that Ayanokoji, or what the move of play was to take, because the teacher, I forget the teacher's name, I'm sorry, changed Ayanokoji's input to this input. Now, the reason why this is a gorgeous fucking move, again, a gorgeous move if you fall for it, because if you take with the pawn thinking, I'm going to win the queen, like we see, we have the rook here checking the king, and there's nothing that could be done, right? I think to actually stall the game out, because it's a mate in two, we have bam, and then take, h1, and then checkmate, right? So a beautiful move, a stunning queen sacrifice trick where if you feel like if you kind of don't think about it, you're low on time, you just take with the pawn, it's over. However, this was not the move Ayanokoji chose to make. Obviously, the teacher changed the input, so Horikita would mess up, but the gorgeous defensive move that Ayanokoji is queen g5, bringing the queen back. This is what the move Ayanokoji wanted to make, and it's a gorgeous defensive move, because in this situation, both queens are hanging. In this situation, you can't just take because the queen just takes, right? So that was the point. This queen is guarding this square now. However, you're thinking, he just takes the queen. However, the reason why the queen sacrifice initially worked was because the rook can come over, right? So if in this situation you take the queen and you take back, because you obviously need to take the queen, the rook can no longer come to this square and checkmate the king because the pawn blocks it, right? Now, of course, you have the take a pawn, but the reason why this is a winning endgame is because you have a whole rook. You're up an entire rook in an endgame with less pieces. You are going to be able to win this, right? And that is why at the end of the match, we see them play out the, or not play out the game, but they played out the game by themselves, and then Sakinagi admitted defeat because she understood this aspect, right? So that's for me beautiful. I'm a chess fan. Like for me, that is so clever. It doesn't work in a technical aspect when it comes to the actual game of chess in an actual perfect level. And I don't think that's what they were going for necessarily. But just this, like Sakayanagi sacrificing the queen, and then this happening to get to the checkmate, but then Ayanokoji actually understanding the gorgeous defensive resource to block to put the queen here to defend and block. Oh my god, that was nice. I love that part. Again, from a grandmaster, if you're a grandmaster in chess, you understand that this isn't that impressive because just in general, white wins. Like white is winning here. All you have to do is you play this and you win the game, right? And there's also, again, we go back all the way. Here, white is winning. It does not matter how strong the position becomes for black here. Ayanokoji is supposed to be this genius. He's supposed to, no one can beat him if he's going all out. He should be able to defend this. I understand it's probably because Horikita's the one that's playing and he would have ran out of time. But again, in a technical aspect, this is the position that needs to be. And then they start playing it out, and then Ayanokoji just ends up slowly starts winning. That, in my opinion, is interesting, but didn't happen because they wanted to go for a little more dramatic, where it's like this right here, people have talked about, this is more forcing because it puts the king in check. So Sakayanagi needs to capture it. And then it goes into this line, right? Into this line. This was more forceful, right? It forces where if Sakayanagi does this, I'm sorry, actually, if Sakayanagi does this, Ayanokoji has this beautiful defensive resource, and the game is over for white. They win. But again, it kind of also shows that Sakayanagi is not that strong, or not as strong as Ayanokoji. Well, technically, yes, it does, because Sakayanagi should see this move. She should see this move, no, 1000%. She doesn't, though, because maybe dramatics, flares and whatever, fine. But she doesn't, and Ayanokoji would have won, but the interference made him not win. Right? So, yeah, that was my recap of trying my best with the chess. I kind of went a little bit long there. Hopefully you enjoyed that, because I try to be as simple and make that as understandable as possible for someone who doesn't necessarily play chess or doesn't know about chess, right? I want to try to explain everything perfectly. But if you guys enjoyed the video, if you guys are liking Classroom Elite at all, even if you're disliking it, let me know why in the comments. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I have a video that I'm about to record after this about Freyrin, because that anime is goated. We're going to talk about that in the next video. I'm probably going to edit that, and I'm going to try to put them out pretty soon. But also, podcast. I have a podcast channel with my boy Bodega. So if you like this video, if you like anime, hit the sub button for this, like button, comment here. Go check out the podcast channel. We got some crazy topics that we've talked about. We post pretty much every Saturday. We post every Saturday. So if you enjoyed that, let me know. Support the channel, support the podcast, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.